Pension contributions, more tax. Income, more tax. Savings, more tax. Dividend income, more tax. High value homes, you guessed it, more tax. Even your pension after you die, taxed. If you're earning, saving, investing, or just planning to retire without running out of money, this budget touched you. Hi, I'm Alifa, Chartered Financial Advisor, and I've been helping families navigate wealth confidently for over a decade. On Wednesday, the 27th of November, Chancellor Rachel Reeves delivered her autumn budget for 2025, laying out the government's economic priorities for the year ahead. The Chancellor's big reveal was slightly undercut by the fact that we'd all read the ending 45 minutes earlier. By the time Reeves stood up to deliver the budget, the internet had already reviewed it, reacted to it, and rage posted accordingly, thanks to the OBR accidentally hitting publish a bit early. For those of you who watched, what did you make of the budget? Was it fair, frustrating, or just more of the same? Let me know in the comments. Now let's look at some of the headlines from the budget and dissect what that may mean for you. We'll start with income tax and national insurance, which for most people didn't change. In fact, despite saying this during last year's budget,
our public services. Having considered this issue closely, I have come to the conclusion that extending the threshold freeze would hurt working people. It would take more money out of their payslips. I am keeping every single promise on tax that I made in our manifesto. So there will be no extension of the freeze in income tax and national insurance thresholds beyond the decisions by the previous government. From 2028-29, personal tax thresholds will be uprated in line with inflation once again.
the Chancellor confirmed that the rates and thresholds would remain frozen for a further 3 years from 2028. And while this might not sound like a big deal, the government is forecast to collect an extra £8 billion in taxes from us from this measure alone. These are the so-called stealth taxes. Imagine you're earning £48,000 a year. Your income sat comfortably in the basic rate band of 20%. For many of us, our pay has increased each year, just enough to keep up with inflation and rising living costs. Recent UK inflation figures are around 3.6%. Let's assume that eases a bit next year and runs at 3% for the following 3 years. Your £48,000 salary, revalued just at this 3% rate, will increase to £52,451. Guess what? Now you're a higher rate taxpayer. Every pound you earn over £50,270 is now taxed at 40%. And so each year your pay rises with inflation. You're nudged a little bit further into the 40% tax band. It is estimated that this will drag 4 million non-taxpayers into income tax, 3 million of us into the higher rate of tax, and 400,000 of us into the additional rate of tax. No new tax bands, no new rates, just a quiet decision to do nothing. And that nothing will cost us £8 billion. On top of frozen thresholds, the government is also increasing the tax on income from assets. So from April 2026, the tax rates on dividends, interest from savings and rental income are all going up by 2 percentage points. What that means for dividend income, basic rate goes from 8.75% to 10.75%, the higher rate goes from 33.75% to 35.75%, but the additional rate stays at 39.35%. For savings and personal rental income, the basic rate goes from 20 to 22%, the higher rate from 40 to 42%, and the additional rate jumps from 45% to 47%. The goal here is clear: to narrow the gap between tax on work and tax on wealth. Now to the one that can never quite stay out of the headlines in the run-up to any budget: pensions. So was this a good budget for pensions? Well, we didn't get the massive overhaul that many doom mongers touted. As I predicted, the 25% tax-free lump sum remains untouched. Hooray. But what did change is the tax relief many people get when saving into their workplace pension via a scheme known as salary sacrifice. Now, if you're not familiar, salary sacrifice is where you agree to give up part of your salary and in return your employer pays that amount into your pension, saving income tax and national insurance in the process. Your employer too saves national insurance. Employers have to pay 15% national insurance on all your earnings over £5,000 per year. So let's say you earn £80,000 a year and you've agreed to sacrifice £20,000 of that into your pension. Under the current system, that £20,000 is completely exempt from income tax and national insurance for both you and your employer. Today, you'd save £8,000 in income tax, 40% of £20,000, and £2,400 in national insurance, 12% of £20,000. That's £10,400 in total tax relief. And right now, by sacrificing £20,000, your employer would save £3,000 in national insurance. Now, some employers will give you that whole saving as an additional contribution to your pension. Some of them will half it with you and give you an extra £1,500. And plenty of employers use that national insurance saving to help cover other employee costs, like private medical insurance, group income protection, death in service cover, employee wellbeing programs. Now, it's really important we're clear on exactly what's changing here. I've already heard a lot of people talking about this, and quite a few are getting it wrong. Horribly wrong. So let's get this straight. Pension contributions themselves aren't being taxed. You still get full income tax relief on anything you pay into your pension within your annual allowance. What's changing is the national insurance savings on salary sacrifice only. From April 2029, only the first £2,000 you sacrifice into your pension will be exempt from employee and employer national insurance. Anything above that, still tax-free from an income tax perspective, but no longer NI free. So from April 2029, if you are earning £80,000 and sacrificing £20,000 into your pension, the first £2,000 of your salary sacrifice is still NI free. But the remaining £18,000 will now attract national insurance. From an employee cost perspective, you're still saving £8,000 in income tax, but you're now paying 12% national insurance on £18,000, which is £2,160. That's £8,240 net tax relief, down from £10,400. That's £2,160 less efficient than today. And from an employer savings perspective, only £300 in NI is now saved, 15% on just the first £2,000, meaning they are now £2,700 worse off. Ouch. This move might raise a bit more national insurance for the Treasury. In fact, they estimate it will bring in a whopping £4.7 billion in a single year. But I do wonder how many employers will now start to scale back their generous pension contributions, cut employee benefits, or rethink whether salary sacrifice is even worth the admin. And there's another unintended side effect. Without employer-managed salary sacrifice schemes, many higher and additional rate taxpayers will need to now claim back their extra tax relief manually. That's something that over 40% of people currently don't do, which means they're missing out on thousands in long-term pension value. So no, this isn't the end of salary sacrifice, but one of its biggest tax perks is being shaved down. And for higher earners, directors, and anyone that uses salary sacrifice for bonus or top-up contributions, that could make a serious difference over time. It's also worth pointing out this change doesn't come into effect until April 2029. That means we've still got 3 full tax years to start or continue making the most of salary sacrifice. So if you're not using it yet, this is very much a make hay while the tax break shines moment. And honestly, 2029 is a long way off in political terms. Who knows? By then, Labour might not even still be in power. And again, to be clear, there is no change to the income tax relief that you receive on your pension contributions, whether a workplace pension or a personal pension. This wasn't a brand new announcement, but the Chancellor has now confirmed that the change is going ahead. From April 2027, unspent pension pots will count as part of the estate when you die. That means for the first time in years, inheritance tax will apply to pensions in many cases. The triple lock is alive and kicking. Under the 2025 budget, the new state pension will rise by 4.8% from April 2026, equivalent to an extra £575 a year. While this looks like a welcome boost, the ongoing freeze to the personal allowance means that many pensioners, particularly those relying solely on state pension, may find their income creeping above the tax-free threshold very soon. Rachel Reeves confirmed that pensioners whose only income is the state pension will not be required to pay income tax even once their pension payments rise above the personal allowance. That means the usual concern that the triple lock increases might push the state pension over the tax-free allowance and trigger a tax liability have been formally acknowledged and, at least for sole pension income cases, effectively ruled out. For the millions of pensioners with private pensions, annuities, investment income, or even part-time earnings, the story is very different. With personal allowances frozen and the state pension creeping ever closer to the tax threshold, more and more retirees are being pulled into the tax net, some for the very first time. And for those with generous defined benefit pensions on top of the state pension, it's not just about paying tax, it's about potentially tipping into the higher rate of tax band, where 40% starts to bite. From April 2027, the cash ISA allowance will drop from £20,000 to £12,000 for anyone under the age of 65. The stocks and shares ISA allowance, however, stays at £20,000 a year. So if you're willing to take more investment risk, the tax perks remain. But if you're someone who prefers the security of cash, you're getting less shelter from the taxman in addition to the extra 2% savings tax. And you do have to wonder, if this leads to lower cash balances sitting on deposit, what kind of knock-on effect might that have for lenders, especially those who rely on retail savings to fund mortgages? They finally did it, they got their mansion tax in. Officially a higher value council tax surcharge, and it's on properties worth £2 million or more. It takes effect from April 2028. So owners of properties valued at £2 million to £2.5 million will face an extra £2,500 per year charge, rising progressively through valuation bands to a maximum of £7,500 per year for homes worth £5 million or more. This surcharge is charged on top of the existing council tax and will be revalued based on 2026 prices. It is estimated to bring in an extra £400 million in 2029-30. So let's take stock. The budget that promised not to tax working people has frozen income tax thresholds for another 3 years, dragging millions of working people into higher tax bands and taking an additional £8 billion, slapped an extra 2% tax on dividends, savings interest and rental income, capped salary sacrifice pension NI relief, taking an extra £4.7 billion from you and your employer, confirmed pensions will now count towards your estate for inheritance tax purposes from 2027. Sliced the cash ISA allowance for under 65s by 40% and introduced a mansion tax due from 2028. So was it a bad budget? I mean, income tax rates didn't go up. The 25% tax-free pension lump sum is still intact. You can still get 20%, 40% or even 45% tax relief on pension contributions. The lifetime allowance is still scrapped, and for now there's no cap on how much you can save into a pension. Employer pension contributions are still fully tax deductible. Plus, if you're over 65, your full cash ISA allowance is untouched. So being as optimistic as I can, it could have been a lot worse. If you've made it this far, thank you so much for your time and attention. If any of these changes have got you thinking, or you're wondering how all this plays out in your own finances, pensions, tax planning or property, feel free to reach out. And I'd love to hear your take. Was it a good budget for Britain? Drop a comment below, especially if you spotted something that I didn't. And don't forget to like, share and subscribe if this helped make sense of the chaos. It really does help out our growing channel. I'll see you on the next one.